Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Golden Astrologer Podcast. This is Deb McBride, and I am recording this in lovely Escazú, Costa Rica, where we're having an overcast afternoon, and it's typical of rainy season. But today is Sunday, the 25th of August in the year 2024. And we have a number of shifts and changes coming this week that are very important. Okay, so let's get started. The first one that everyone wants to hear about is that Mercury is going direct. And that is Wednesday, the 28th. And it's hard to believe that this Mercury retrograde is coming to a close because it's gone so fast, as has the month of August. And it's interesting because it's been... So now it's just about the full 3 weeks, like tonight into tomorrow is the full 3 weeks that Mercury will be retrograde. And there's an extra couple of bonus days that we've had this month and this Mercury retrograde, because Mercury retrograde usually takes about 21 days, and this one is a little longer, which is always a little more complicated for each of us because we don't want Mercury to be in retrograde for too long because it delays progress. So today we have 3 more days really till Wednesday, and it becomes direct at 5:14 p.m. Eastern time, which is nice and early to still get things done. For me, that's 3:14 p.m. Eastern time. And, it's half the day. So we can start to expect some clarity coming forward in the middle of the day. Now, I think it's always interesting that when Mercury shifts direction in the middle of our day, half the day is retrograde, the other half the day is direct. And so things start to sort themselves out through the progression of our hours of that day. And it still may be wonky, okay? Because there are certainly times when you're talking to someone and there's a miscommunication of sorts, and it's like the day after Mercury has gone direct, or in the hours after. It's like, don't expect the snap, okay, that's it. Okay, it's no more retrograde, but that doesn't mean people aren't confused and information isn't confusing. So, I would still give it another day. Like you're going to want to do things like, oh, I'm putting off that order to Amazon because I'm waiting for things to clear up and I'm making the right choices on what I'm ordering, something like that. Or I'm not going to make that phone call today. I'll wait till Mercury's direct. Okay, that's fine. I'd give it till Thursday. Why? Because it's Mercury sort of shaking itself out, for sure. But then another thing's going to happen, in that on Thursday at 9:23 a.m., Venus is going to go into Libra. Now, that's where Venus belongs. She's still in Virgo until then, and that's not her favorite sign. So it's good for her to go into Libra on the 29th, Thursday, and there's going to be a little shift in energy because she's not in Mercury's sign anymore. Right? So she's still in Mercury's sign up until 9:23 a.m. Eastern time on Thursday morning. And so she is still under this shadowy Mercury retrograde, right? So I would let her move into Libra, where she's the ruler, and then make your choices, your decisions, your phone calls, your communications, okay? So I think that's a good plan. Meanwhile, the day before, when Mercury's going direct, about, 45 minutes, 15 minutes prior to that, Venus is going to oppose Neptune. And so that's always clouded judgment. It's still relationships, it's still people, it's still communicating with people. She's in Virgo still at that point. So Wednesday the 28th, we've got 2 major things happening. Venus is going to be opposite Neptune, and Mercury's going direct like 50 minutes later. And since Venus will be opposing Neptune, which is already a lack of clarity in many instances, and she's ruled by a retrograde Mercury, I would say leave everything till Thursday, right? Do the things Thursday. You still got Thursday, Friday. I know in the United States it's Labor Day weekend. People start to take off early, but we've got to move through this anyway over the next few days, okay? Venus being opposite Neptune is another story. She's loves Neptune because it's the higher octave of Venus and they work well together, but it's still in opposition. So it may be one of those times when we get starry-eyed or we meet a partner who is not on the level with us, so we have to exercise caution. There may be something that we are not clear about as far as our finances, things like that may be confusing. And then when we start working with Venus and Neptune, these are the times to get into our creativity, our visionary qualities, our meditations. So I would say use this time internally, get into your creativity, spend time being creative, tap into what, Venus is speaking to you, tap into the clarity of creativity, work with those energies. It could be really delightful. And, maybe you have friends over or something, have guests visiting. That could be very social and very nice for Venus and Neptune. So spend this time doing gentle things. Spend this time in empathy also. Empathy towards self, because you could be really hard on yourself with Venus in Virgo. The tendency to beat ourselves up and be hard on ourselves is very high. And we're in Virgo season now. So the sun is officially there in Virgo, as I spoke about last week. And so now Venus and the sun are in Virgo, and it's this sense of, maybe self-flagellation and all, and not seeing ourselves clearly when there's this opposition to Neptune from Venus. And the experience of that, especially for women, because it's a feminine-oriented sign, it could be this: I'm not enough, I don't feel enough, I'm not beautiful enough, I'm not rich enough, I'm not enough. And we have to see past that. That's an illusion, okay? You are enough. We all are enough. We are completely enough. And don't let anybody tell you otherwise. And it can be this illusion of Neptune. Also, be very careful about your dealings with people. Last Thursday, I had another Mercury retro. I had a lot of Mercury retrograde moments this time around, but there was another Mercury retrograde moment when I got a phone call from AT&T, or so I thought it was AT&T, but it wasn't. It was a spoofed number saying they were AT&T and posing as them trying to get information from me. Fortunately, I did not pick up the phone, but it caused a bit of a stir because they were leaving messages saying, "Oh, your email and password are all changed as you requested. No further action is required." I didn't do any of that. So we're still under Neptune. We're still under Mercury retrograde. Be careful of these things. This is a way, that day, the 28th, is a good day to get spoofed. So be careful of your phone, your bank account, your everything, your details, your email, everything, okay? Because it's Mercury stationing and Venus and Neptune, then you don't want to go later in the day and go, "Oh my God, oh no, that was a mistake." Okay? Because that's like a double fooling of things. Use the energy wisely. If these things roll across your desk and your phones and your communication systems, just be highly aware of what you're doing and who you're talking to on Wednesday, okay? It's easy to get spoofed on Wednesday, easy. So, and if you're in another part of the world, it'll be Thursday morning, okay? So just be careful. Venus does talk to the outer planets quite a bit this week because on Tuesday, the 27th, she'll be trining Uranus. So at the end of Virgo, she's got a lot of contacts. She's trining Uranus, 3:24 a.m. Eastern Time. And that's also a good thing for creativity, for liberation, for friendships, for opening to new ideas. It's good to be open-minded and accepting of things and accepting of your friends and things they may share with you on Tuesday when we've got Venus trine Uranus. People may come out of the woodwork and surprise you with things. They may tell you about relationships they're having. They may tell you about inner deep qualities of their life that you never recognized about them. Have patience, listen, be present, be empathic. Even with the trine to Uranus, we're still walking into that opposition to Neptune. So there's a lot of dynamics with Venus. Our relationships matter this week. our friendships, how we're close with people, how we talk to people, what we value in people, what we value in ourselves and our lives, and what we do with our money, where we put our money, all those things. All that matters this week as Venus is talking to the 3 outer planets 3 days in a row. So she's talking to Uranus on Tuesday, very nicely. It's a little more pointed on Wednesday when she's opposite Neptune. And then when she moves into Libra on Thursday, she's trining Pluto at 10:32 a.m. So like an hour and 10 minutes or so later, after she goes into Libra, she's immediately trining Pluto, which is powerful and good. And it's a good dynamic for our relationships. It's good for owning power. It's good for speaking power to power, you and colleagues and clients and friends. It's great for work. It's great for decorating. It's great for, again, for creativity, because all of this sparks creativity. All of it brings us to a different creative place. She loves being in her own sign. She connects with Pluto in a deep way. We can go deep into creative matters, into our visionary qualities, into the visions we have of our life for the future. This is really good. It's great for socializing too. So this could be a social week. So remember that. So like Tuesday, Uranus, Wednesday, Neptune, Thursday, Pluto. This is a lot of activity for Venus. This is a lot of exchanges of information and social greetings and socializing. So, and do be careful of your social media too with that Venus Neptune, because you could get spoofed there as well. So, use this energy wisely. It's great for digging in deep to your creative juices. Great for that. And I would highly recommend you use the energy that way. Okay, so those are in the middle of the week like that. Those are good energies to be spending time with as we get closer and closer to, Mercury going direct, and Venus getting out of Mercury's sign where it was retrograde. So this is Venus's last hurrah through Virgo. Okay, and she's moving into her own sign where she'll be for the next bunch of weeks, and it should be a little smoother as far as our relationships are going, and as far as the experience of just tapping into our creativity in general. Venus in Libra loves design, loves beauty, loves the finer things in life, the little touches, the little gestures, the little polite things, the little thank you notes. Venus in Libra loves all of this. And it's good to, if you're going to like redesign your home or do some decorating in your house or anywhere, your office, Venus is in a great place later in the week to start doing this. So you get your ideas flowing, things stimulated, and get moving on these things. If you're redoing your website, if you're putting up your website, all good, once we get past Mercury retrograde. Now, the other exciting day is next Sunday. And of course, I'm going to meet with you again next Sunday, but let's talk about it now because it's up and coming and the energies are moving in that direction all week. Lots of stuff is happening on Sunday, the 1st of September. The first thing is that Uranus is going retrograde. Now, this is interesting because Uranus has been going retrograde in August these last few years, and now it's going in September. So it's getting later and later, which means when it goes direct, it's going to be later in January or early February, right? Uranus will retrograde at 27 degrees of Taurus. So as you can see, it's starting to get to the end of the sign as the sign is 30 degrees. This is it. We're getting to the last home stretch of Uranus and Taurus. And within the next year, it's going to step into Gemini. But more on that next year. Okay, we'll be in touch for that, right? So this is an interesting dynamic. This is an interesting dynamic as Uranus starts to make this shift backwards for the next bunch of months, and that's going to be 11:18 a.m. on Sunday the 1st. Now, it's a time to kind of step back and understand, our brilliance, our genius, the things that make us go and the things that make us excited and inspired and taking risks. And I'm not going to say this is a bad time to take risks or anything. I'm going to say that this is a time for Uranus to step back and let us examine the risks we've taken and anything that we need to review about those things. And are we happy with the risks we've taken since the end of January? Uranus is now going to be the third outer planet that's retrograde. Okay, so all the outer planets will be retrograde, and Uranus is taking its time and going later than the other two, but they go throughout the year. And we've got, a good month and a half or so before Pluto goes direct. So Uranus and Pluto will be retrograde together during this time. It is a time of a little bit of frenetic energy. Uranus stops in the sky. At least it's not stopping where we have, a full moon, or where we have, it's not sitting with the full moon as it was a couple weeks ago, the other day. It's doing this sort of on its own. There is, the moon will be squaring Uranus later that day after Uranus makes its shift. But this is always a little bit, frenetic. It means we might not sleep the night before. It may mean we don't sleep that night. It may mean things are a little crazy. The phone is ringing off the hook. People are calling. People are texting. People are emailing. It's too many things. This is the nature of Uranus, but it's stopping in the sky, and it's going to make this shift backwards. And during this time between now and January 30th, when it goes direct, it's going to be a reflection for us on where we are holding ourselves back, or where we put limits on ourselves. Now, Saturn is the planet of limits, but Uranus is the freedom lover. Uranus is the liberation planet. And where might we be feeling we need more liberation? And where have we held ourselves back? And where we are not willing to take risks? Where do we need to identify what the limitations are and how we've exposed ourselves to those limitations? Where are we saying we can't? Maybe we really can, and we just want to play it safe. Uranus is not a safe energy. It's not a safe planet. It's not the moon. Moon wants safety, security, satisfaction. Uranus doesn't. Uranus wants to shake things up. And so I expect some shaking over these next days, and what may emerge from this shakeup, especially that the moon is going to square Uranus later that day, the shakeup is, where have I been playing small? Where have I not jumped forward and taken the risk? You have these months till the end of January to get yourself aligned with where you need to leap forward. Now, that doesn't mean you can't start to leap forward while Uranus is retrograde. It just helps you go internally and identify where you've been scared, maybe. And that's fine. That's normal. That's why these cycles happen and are helpful to us. But you don't want to go, okay, that's it. I'm changing this. I'm changing this. I'm changing this. I've got my list of 25 things, and I'm going to make all these changes while Uranus is retrograde. Well, maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe it's just too much for the nervous system. And Uranus is a lot. Uranus can be too much for the nervous system. So you may get a little shakeup in the form of an epiphany or a little bit of a shock, like, oh, that's why I've been playing small. That's why I'm holding myself back. That's why I think I don't have what I need. Or just write it down in your journal, make note of it, internalize it, embody it. I know what I'm doing now, and then you can step forward. Okay? This is the time to really play all out when we recognize what's holding us back. We want to make the shifts and changes necessary for Uranus to actively help us through going to the next level of our lives. Okay? But one step at a time, right? We've got months of this retrograde, and one step at a time. You may be surprised by what you learn about yourself. We often are, right? Like, wow, I really don't want to take that risk because of 1, 2, and 3 reasons, X, Y, and Z, right? So those are things that we need to pay very close attention to, because they may come knocking on the door. Like, okay, you gotta jump here. You gotta take that leap, like the fool in the tarot, right? You've got to take that leap. Okay, I've got to do it. That's fine. That's fine. Then, Sunday the 1st is the day that Pluto goes back into Capricorn. 8:10 p.m. Eastern Time. This is the last week for right now, just right now, the last full week that Pluto is in Aquarius. And then it's going to step back into that old Capricorn energy and stay there till November 19th. That's Sunday, 8:10 p.m. Eastern Time. Well, this is the moment we've been talking about, and the moment we've been kind of waiting for, not for the reasons of stepping forward, but for cleaning up the past. In these months, we've got to look at what we've been holding on to from the last 16 years and what has to go. it's important to recognize those things, and it's important to set them up for release and know that we're finishing up this 16-year cycle. So we've got this moment, and it's good. When you think about it, it's good for us to clear out the old and really recognize and let go of certain patterns and things and stories that we've been carrying since 2008. So this is important for each of us to do a little emotional homework and look at where the transformation has occurred in these last 16 years. How are you different? I'm sure you're really different from the last 16 years. What happened in 2008 that's now finishing the story? What's good about that? How can you release that story and move forward with your life? Aquarius is a progressive sign. Capricorn is not that level of progressiveness. It's not. It's ruled by Saturn. Saturn doesn't necessarily want to be progressive. Aquarius used to be ruled by Saturn. Well, it's still co-ruled by Saturn, but it's really Uranus. And that's where we are now, interestingly enough, as the planet that rules Aquarius is turning direction. Pluto is stepping out of Aquarius. And all this Aquarius air energy is taking a little bit of a back seat for the next couple months as we move through these final stages of Pluto and Capricorn. Can you launch things? Yeah, sure. I think so. It's okay. People are going to have kids. I know people who are pregnant, they're going to have kids in this time. Yeah, your baby will be born with Pluto and Capricorn if you're having a baby in like September or something, October, even part of November. But there's the final hurrahs in our world, in the collective unconscious as well. And so we're going to see that's a big day for shifts and changes in the grander scheme of things. Things can happen on Sundays, Mondays, Saturday, the day before. We can witness some very big changes in the world, surprises, things that happen out of nowhere, changes in the grand narrative. Okay, so, nothing is certain right now, and we've got big changes next Sunday. So we have to finish that story of Pluto and Capricorn. We have to look at where we've been. We have to really dig in and release everything that has been our narrative since 2008. Yeah, we're getting this nice taste of Pluto and Aquarius since January, right? And most of this year we'll have Pluto and Aquarius when all's said and done. But these next months are requiring us to finish our own story, narrative, things that have happened since then. Now remember, Pluto and Capricorn was about the stock markets, the financial world, the government, the bank bailouts, all of those things. It is not impossible to think that we are going to have some of those topics show up again. There may be more bank failures. There may be more government issues. There may be bailouts. There may be something. It's like, this again? Yeah, back from 2008 when all of that happened. This is the last hurrah for all of that. There may be something that comes full circle since 2008, like a story that began in the world back then and now it's finished. So it's important for us to recognize what's happening in the greater scheme of things, how that relates to our own lives, our own little personal lives, and what in our life where do we need to finally close doors and accept apologies and forgiveness and forgive these years. I'm going to say it again. I think Pluto and Capricorn was dark. I think it's been dark. I don't think these next 2 months are going to be horrendously dark again. It's not 2020. It's not Saturn, Pluto, and Capricorn. It's Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter. It's not. It's Pluto leaving. And remember these years, and remember 2020 and what was going on for each of us then. And Pluto saying goodbye to those days, those thoughts, those experiences, those moments. But I think Pluto and Capricorn was dark. Pluto and Saturn are an interesting dynamic, and I think that they really can be highly productive in many people and highly resilient for people and within people. People carry that signature in their astrological charts, in their natal charts. But Pluto and Saturn's world, And there was a point back in like 2015 and all in 2014 when Saturn was in Scorpio and Pluto was in Capricorn, and they were in each other's worlds, okay? They were in that mutual reception with one another. And so this is, we can say goodbye to all of this, okay? All of this is finally leaving, and Pluto goes into Aquarius, where I think it seems to be more compatible, and where we're seeing things and advancements and in technology and in our own lives. So I think it's a bummer to have to go through Pluto in Capricorn again. It's like, oh no, not this again. Really? Really? Because we're tired of it. This is the collective unconscious. It's like, this is yesteryear. You don't want to go back to yesteryear. When you look at styles and fashions and music and the popular culture from times past, from years past, you look at them and you go, oh, that's funny. Oh, we wore our hair like that. We wore clothes like that. Oh, that music, it's just so yesteryear, right? That's what this is. We're taking a dip back into yesteryear for the next few months. And we can say, all right, I made mistakes in yesteryear. I'm going to clean them up now. And this is what Pluto and Capricorn is affording us to do. Clean up anything that we don't want to take forward with us as we go into the next 20 years. And I mean that, 20 years of Pluto in Aquarius. So this is the final chapter of Pluto in Capricorn. And Pluto will make a nice trine to Uranus. Uranus in Taurus, Pluto in Capricorn. They're at the end of the signs. That's a good thing. And as we go forward into these next months and the next year, Pluto and Uranus will be staying in trine to one another, which is a flowing, lovely opportunity type of aspect. And, you may remember the square of Uranus and Pluto that we were having back. It went from 2012 to like 2015 exactly. It was on and off. There were like 4 passages, 5 passages for a number of years, and things really got shaken up between Uranus and Pluto back then. And there were eclipses involved, and then, Mars was involved back in 2014. This was a lot of stuff that happened. So now they're saying, hey, you made that big transition. And they were, I could say 2016, Uranus and Pluto were still squaring each other widely, but they were still squaring each other. They weren't exact anymore. They were a little out of orb. But now we've got this trine between them, and they're both doing this thing next Sunday. So they are becoming friendly again. There's not this complication between them that there had been 10 years ago. And it's hard to believe it's been 10 years, but yes, it was 10 years ago. And, the people who were born in the 60s, the mid-60s, from like 1963 to 1969 to the end of the 60s, those of us with Uranus-Pluto conjunct, whenever these two planets talk to one another, then it brings up those qualities of our life, our mission, our purpose, what we're doing here, because our mission unfolds as we have this Uranus and Pluto talking to one another strongly, and a trine is a strong aspect. It's one of the major aspects. And even though it's a smooth aspect, it's not something you just sort of forget about. You really want to bring fulfillment towards what you're doing. Now, that first square back in 2013 and 2014 and all, that first square from the conjunction back in the 60s was a big revelation for people. And I can say I remember it extremely well. People coming to me and saying, I don't know what's happening to me. I had this nice, peaceful life, and I don't have that now. And I don't know what's going on. And it's Uranus and Pluto, like raking up all the stuff. Not that this trine between them is going to make it all nicey nice to where it was before 2012. No, it's going to take you to the next level after the choices you made and the things that happened as a result of what went on back in those 2012s, those 20 teens, okay? So this is important, this Uranus-Pluto dance. And Pluto will step back into Aquarius, and Uranus will step into Gemini next year, and then we've got them in air signs. So there's this earth compatibility, and then there's air. And even with Uranus, when it's like 29 Taurus next year, it'll still be trining Pluto because Pluto will be in early Aquarius. So it's an out of sign trine, but that's good. That's okay. They are talking to each other nicely, and that's two big guns having a nice conversation. We'll see it this week as we see Venus talking sweetly to Uranus and sweetly to Pluto. Okay, so she's in that Virgo Libra place, and essentially she's making a grand trine, Venus in a grand trine to Uranus and Pluto. Wow, that's big. She's at the end of Virgo and the beginning of Libra. This really sums up a very important connection in our relationships this week, and it's probably the bigger aspect of this week is overall, yes, Uranus is changing direction. Yes, Pluto is stepping back. Those are really important. But that Uranus and Pluto are going to be joined by Venus, and she's talking to them from Tuesday on. And I mean, she's talking to them now. She's at the point in Virgo that she's trining Uranus. So there's a smoothness and a coherence that's happening between Uranus, Pluto, and Venus in this grand trine. That's good for me. I have Uranus and Pluto together opposite Venus. So it'll be very interesting to see what surfaces in my life this week and what I get engaged in, with people and things. So if you're a person born in the 60s and you have that Uranus-Pluto relationship, then you've got some interesting dynamics happening this week where you will see how your relationships with people are flourishing and connecting, and also your own creativity and your purpose here. So if you have questions about that, you can always connect with me in a session. Go to thegoldenastrologer.com and click book online, and you will be able to set up a session with me, and we can talk more deeply about Uranus and Pluto and Venus in your chart. This is a powerful dynamic we're having this week. So watch out for that. Look at your relationships. See how they're balanced in some ways and maybe not great in other ways, but with that Neptune, but just see how Venus, that dynamic between Venus and Uranus and Pluto, and then Uranus and Pluto make shifts and changes on Sunday. This is a big week for all of that. So I think it's important to tie all those elements together. Also, if you want to do Reiki with me, it's very lovely, and it can reveal some really good things for your life and healing. It's very healing. It's a very good feeling afterwards. We can clear up energies that are straying, that are erratic, especially during a Uranus station like this. Reiki is a wonderful thing to do. You can go to book online on my website, thegoldenastrologer.com, and also connect there with Reiki and expansion mentoring if you want to work with me for longer periods of time. 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. If you like my style, you like working with me, we can work more often and go more deeply into what you need. I'm here for you. And you can see me on Instagram during the week, The Golden Astrologer. I thank you for listening. I am most grateful to you, all of you, my audience. I hope you share this with other people, help them connect to their own astrology, to their own healing experiences. And I will see you next week on the station of Uranus and the entry of Pluto back into Capricorn and the verge of the new moon that's going to happen on the 2nd of September. And in the meantime, have a beautiful week. Stay in touch. See you soon. Thanks for listening.